Most of us have been taught to think of God as something separate from ourselves, a cosmic person sitting on a throne somewhere beyond the clouds, watching us from a distance, occasionally intervening in our affairs, judging our behavior, and deciding our fate. We pray to this external deity, hoping to get its attention, earn its favor, and receive its blessings. We feel separate from this God, cut off from the divine, exiled from paradise, struggling to bridge an impossible gap between the human and the sacred. But what if this entire picture is not just wrong, but backwards? What if God isn't out there at all, but is the very essence of what you are? What if the divine isn't separate from creation, but is creation itself, expressing itself as galaxies and planets, as trees and rivers, as animals and humans, as you and me and everyone and everything that exists? What if what you call God is not a being among other beings, but being itself, the very isness of existence, the consciousness in which all experience arises? This is one of Alan Watts's most revolutionary and liberating insights. Through his deep study of Eastern wisdom traditions and his own direct experience, he came to see that what we call God is not a separate entity that we need to reach or please or find, but the very ground of our own being, the source and substance of our own existence, the consciousness that is looking through our eyes right now. The problem, according to Watts, is that we've been conditioned to experience ourselves as isolated, separate individuals, what he called skin-encapsulated egos, who are fundamentally disconnected from the world around us and from the divine source of all existence. We feel like we're trapped inside our own skin, looking out at a foreign universe, trying to make contact with a God who seems infinitely distant and other. This sense of separation is what creates most of our suffering, loneliness, and spiritual hunger. We feel cut off from the source of love, disconnected from meaning and purpose, alienated from our true nature. We spend our lives trying to get back to God, back to paradise, back to wholeness, not realizing that we never actually left. We're like waves on the ocean searching desperately for water, not recognizing that they are water, that they've never been anything but water, temporarily taking the form of a wave. But what if this separation is completely illusory? What if you've never actually been separate from God because you can't be separate from what you are? What if what you call I and what you call God are not two different things, but two different names for the same reality? The one consciousness that appears as the many, the single awareness that experiences itself through countless different perspectives. This is not pantheism, the idea that everything is God in the sense that everything contains some divine substance. This is something more radical and immediate. The recognition that what you really are at the deepest level is the same consciousness that religious traditions have called God, Brahman, Buddha nature, or the Tao. You are not a separate being who has consciousness. You are consciousness itself, temporarily identifying with a particular body and mind. Think about your direct experience right now. What is it that's aware of these words? What is it that's conscious of your thoughts, your feelings, your sensations? That aware presence, that's what you really are. Not your thoughts, because you can observe your thoughts. Not your emotions, because you can witness your emotions. Not your body, because you can be aware of your body. You are the awareness itself, the consciousness in which all these phenomena appear and disappear. This consciousness is not produced by your brain any more than music is produced by a radio. Your brain is like a radio that's tuned into the frequency of universal consciousness. But consciousness itself is not dependent on any particular radio. When one radio breaks, the music doesn't cease to exist. It just stops being broadcast through that particular instrument. Similarly, what you really are, this pure awareness, this conscious presence, is not limited to or produced by your individual body and mind. You are the eternal, infinite consciousness that temporarily focuses itself through this particular nervous system, temporarily identifies with this particular personality, temporarily plays the role of this particular person. When you recognize this, not as a belief but as a direct experience, everything changes. You stop feeling separate from God because you realize you are the very consciousness that people call God. You stop trying to find the divine outside yourself because you recognize that you are the divine expressing itself as yourself. You stop searching for spiritual experiences because you see that existence itself is the ultimate spiritual experience. This recognition doesn't make you grandiose or inflate your ego. If anything, it dissolves the ego entirely. When you see that the same consciousness is looking through every pair of eyes, thinking through every brain, experiencing through every form of life, you realize that you're not special in the sense of being separate or superior. You're special in the sense of being a unique and irreplaceable expression of the one universal consciousness. It's like realizing that you're an actor in an infinite play where every character is being played by the same actor. You don't become proud of being the hero or ashamed of being the villain because you understand that it's all the same performer playing different roles. You can throw yourself completely into your character while never forgetting that you're part of something much larger and more magnificent than any individual role. This understanding transforms your entire relationship with spirituality. Instead of trying to get closer to God, you realize you can't get any closer to what you already are. Instead of trying to find God, you recognize that you are what God finds itself as when it looks through your eyes. Instead of trying to unite with the divine, you see that the very one who wants to unite is the divine, temporarily pretending to be separate so it can have the joy of remembering its true nature. Prayer becomes not a request to an external deity, but a conversation with your own deepest self. Meditation becomes not an effort to reach some transcendent state, but a relaxation into the awareness that you already are. Worship becomes not the veneration of something other than yourself, but the celebration of what you most fundamentally are. But here's where many people get confused. If we're all expressions of the same divine consciousness, why does the world seem so full of separation, conflict, and suffering? Why don't we all recognize our true nature immediately? Why does the illusion of separation seem so convincing and persistent? Watts would say that this is exactly the point, the cosmic game that consciousness plays with itself. Imagine if you were an actor who was so good at method acting that you could completely forget you were acting and totally believe you were the character. The drama would be much more convincing, the emotions much more real, the story much more engaging. This is what consciousness does when it incarnates as individual beings. It plays the cosmic game of hide and seek with itself, temporarily forgetting its true nature so it can have the adventure of rediscovering it. It pretends to be separate so it can experience reunion. It acts lost so it can experience being found. It creates the illusion of many so it can remember it's actually one. From this perspective, every spiritual seeker is actually God seeking itself. Every moment of longing for the divine is actually the divine longing for itself. Every prayer is God talking to God. Every meditation is consciousness returning to consciousness. Every moment of awakening is the universe recognizing itself through another one of its temporary expressions. This doesn't diminish the reality of your individual experience or make your personal journey meaningless. Your unique perspective, your particular challenges, your specific path of awakening, these are all precious and necessary parts of the cosmic story. You are not just a drop in the ocean, you are the entire ocean expressing itself as a drop. You are not just a wave on the sea, you are the entire sea playing at being a wave. But recognizing this can bring tremendous relief and freedom. You don't have to earn God's love because you are God loving yourself. You don't have to prove your worth to the divine because you are the divine expressing its infinite worth as you. You don't have to fear divine judgment because there's no one separate from you to do the judging. This doesn't mean there are no consequences to your actions or that ethics become meaningless. When you truly understand that everyone else is another expression of the same consciousness you are, harming others becomes literally harming yourself. Loving others becomes literally loving yourself. Serving others becomes literally serving yourself. The golden rule, treat others as you would like to be treated, becomes not just a moral guideline, but a statement of metaphysical fact. You begin to see that what you do to the world, you do to yourself, because you are the world. How you treat other people is how you treat other aspects of yourself. The love you give is the love you receive, because there's only one consciousness here giving and receiving love through all these different forms. This recognition can transform not only your spiritual life, but your entire approach to existence. Work becomes not just a way to earn money, but a way to express your divine creativity. Relationships become not just connections between separate people, but the way consciousness experiences itself through different perspectives. Challenges become not obstacles to overcome, but opportunities for consciousness to know itself more deeply. Even your problems and difficulties take on a different quality when you see them from this perspective. They're not happening to you as a separate individual. They're happening as you through you, for the purpose of consciousness expanding its self-knowledge and deepening its capacity for wisdom and compassion. This doesn't make difficulties easier or eliminate pain, but it does eliminate the additional layer of suffering that comes from feeling like a victim of circumstances. When you know that you are the universe experiencing itself through this particular configuration of consciousness, even your struggles become sacred, even your pain becomes purposeful, even your confusion becomes part of the cosmic process of awakening. You begin to live what's called the religious life, not in the sense of following particular doctrines or rituals, but in the sense of recognizing the sacred dimension of ordinary existence. Every moment becomes a revelation, every encounter becomes a communion. Every experience becomes a form of prayer. You don't need to go to special places to find God, because wherever you are, God is. You don't need to perform special practices to connect with the divine, because you are the divine connection itself. You don't need to wait for special moments to experience the sacred, because every moment is sacred by its very nature. This is perhaps the most radical and liberating teaching that can be offered. You are not a separate being looking for God. You are God looking for yourself. You are not a human having a spiritual experience. You are spirit having a human experience. You are not trying to get back to heaven. You are heaven, temporarily experiencing itself as earth. The God you've been seeking outside yourself has been closer than your own breath all along, closer than your own thoughts, closer than your own heartbeat. Not close in the sense of being nearby, but close in the sense of being identical. The seeker and the sought are one. The lover and the beloved are one. The worshipper and the worshipped are one. When you truly understand this, when you move beyond believing it to directly experiencing it, the spiritual search ends not in failure, but in the ultimate success, the recognition that what you were looking for was what was doing the looking all along. The journey ends not in arrival at some distant destination, but in the realization that you never left home in the first place. You are not separate from God. You never were. You never could be. The illusion of separation was just that. An illusion, a temporary forgetting, a cosmic game of hide and seek that ends the moment you stop looking outside yourself and recognize what you've always been. The one divine consciousness expressing itself as the beautiful, unique, irreplaceable miracle that you are. This is not something you need to become. This is what you are. This is not something you need to achieve. This is what you've always been. This is not something you need to find. This is what's been here all along, patiently waiting for you to stop looking everywhere else and recognize the God that's been looking through your eyes, thinking through your mind, loving through your heart, in every moment of your existence. God isn't out there. God is in here. God isn't other. God is you. Not the small you that feels separate and limited, but the real you that is infinite, eternal, and one with all that is.